Right, infernal blessings. Welcome everybody to another video. Before I begin, I always like to do some quick announcements. For all those that reach out to me by email, how can I take your classes? What kind of classes you offer? Best way to take classes with me, well, really the main way to take classes with me is by going to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. And tier 3 is the way to go. Join tier 3. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon, for Patreon members only. It also gives you access to the monthly ritual that I do also for Patreon members only. If you are interested in a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation, the type of readings I do offer are Clepothic demonic readings. I also offer Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, which is if you're looking to uncover the shadow of the hidden self, to see what you got going on, what's affecting you in your life. It's also good if you need a sense of direction. What direction should I be heading into as I'm trying to do ritual work? It'll help you design ritual work for your needs first as opposed to just your wants. For a full list of readings, just send me an email. It's in the description box of the videos, khnum19@gmail.com, and I will send you information on how to book a reading or a consultation, including that, to save time, days and times you're available, and the time zone that you are in. Also, the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. We are now signing up and registering people. That process has officially begun. So you can reach out to me if you're interested in attending in person, which I highly recommend, which is a 4-day event, meet and greet on Thursday, classes and workshops all day Friday and Saturday. We come back later in the evening on Friday and Saturday for a group ritual, and then we all go out to eat afterwards and kind of socialize and have a little fun on Friday and Saturday night. And then the event closes out on Sunday, noon to 4. I'll be doing a question and answer class from noon to 4 p.m. And that closes out the event. So if you're interested in attending in person, or if you want to attend virtually, virtually gives you access to the 3 days of classes on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Shoot me an email, specify what you want information for, if it's one or the other, or both, and I'll send you that information also. That pretty much covers the announcements. Also, again, remember, all this new content that I'm uploading, in addition to some existing content, can now be also accessed in podcast form on the Primordial Chaos podcast, and the link to that podcast is in the description box of this video. So now if you want to listen to the audio files of these videos while you're, again, you could be exercising, driving, or just around and about the house, you can now listen to them in your earbuds in audio files, all right? At the official Primordial Podcast, Primordial Chaos Podcast, which is pretty much available on every major platform. All right, so what I wanted to talk about in this video real quick for about 20 to 30 minutes or so, ain't gonna be too long-winded in this one. The Antinomian path, right? We hear this term along with apotheosis, right? And I'm gonna do a video on that too. But we're gonna focus on the Antinomian path in this video. People will always ask, and I'm sure all of us who are on this path, we get into certain dialogue with people, and I'm sure we've all been asked, what's your religion, right? And they always word it like that. What's your religion? What do you believe in? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in a supreme being, etc.? We all get these questions, right? Because of humans' insecurities and fears, most people, and some of them are not even aware that they do it, most people need to put you in a box. They want to try to put titles and labels on you so they can feel comfortable. So they'll ask questions like that. What's your religion? What do you believe in? Do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe in a supreme God, etc., etc.? So if you say simple things that they can easily put you in a box, you give them titles like, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew, I'm a Buddhist, I'm this, I'm that. See, when it's something that they're very familiar with, it makes them feel comfortable, okay? So that's why people do it. When they're trying to figure you out, they're trying to gauge you, they're trying to measure you up, because we're a unique breed on this path. Just by conversation and dialogue we hold or have with people, they immediately sense something different in us. How they tap into that, some tap into it where we have a natural magnetism where they're drawn to us and they want to learn. And then some tap into it and they are going to pure fear because they can't phantom or put a finger on, quote unquote, what it is we are to make them feel comfortable, okay? Now, in essence, I always like to say, we use titles, right? I just want to make this clear. We use titles such as, we call this spiritual path the left-hand path, we call it the occult, we call it the path of self-mastery. These are just titles, right? In essence, you really can't put a label or a title on what we do because what we do is so diverse. What we do, we cover so many dynamics of spirituality. We're not confined to any one particular spiritual system. And that's the beautiful thing about this path. You're not restricted to exclusively being one thing. See, that's what some people who are still enslaved and indoctrinated, they can't fathom. Because they've been taught and programmed to, you must be exclusively this or you must be full-fledged that. See, the beauty of what we do is we can be very flexible, we can fluctuate, we can move in and out of different realms and the sphere of things and work multiple different paths because this is a path of liberation and freedom, or as I like to say, a path of self-mastery. So you really can't put a title on what we do. But there are a few definitions that kind of sum up and explain what we do. You can use the term self-mastery or apotheosis, self-deification. I'll talk further about that on another video. Or if you had to describe our path as a whole, our practice, our methodologies, and our approach, and sum it all up, the antinomian path would be how I would describe it. If somebody really needed, they were harping that bad to get an understanding of what it is we deal with. So again, I'm going to go in the Draconian Ritual book. There's a section in here, the Antinomian path, and I'm going to build on this just for a little bit. All right. An important element of the left-hand path is antinomianism, the attitude of opposing the commonly accepted norms of behavior, breaking taboos, transcending limitations, acting against the world order, or inverting conventional values in order to tear the veil of social and cultural indoctrination and to liberate the mind from any form of constraint. That's what the antinomian path is in a nutshell. So you're a nonconformist. You don't accept all the traditional and conventional methods of spirituality. You don't just do things because everybody else is doing them. And you're not afraid to stand on your own, right? So it's a path of liberation. It's a path of making your own choices and not being culturally indoctrinated and not just conforming to things in the world and society because everybody else is, all right? Now, the term itself derives from the Greek against and nomos, law, and it originally referred to views opposing Christianity and the obligation to the law of faith. So the word itself, antinomian, means against the law. So it's a very left-hand path against the law, meaning against, again, mainstream, the norm. I want to make this clear because some people run with shit. Not against the normal law that you're just going to be ruthless and do all kinds of chaotic, crazy shit. It's talking about your spiritual path and your approach. We're not confined or obligated to any rules, laws, regulations, restrictions, or dogmas. So when you're on an antinomian path, you are free of all of that. You've liberated yourself from all of that, which is why I've been saying hard since like early 2018 about shedding old paradigms. I keep telling people this. You must shed old paradigms. You must let go of all those things that you picked up along the way that have indoctrinated, all these belief systems, dogmas, and sometimes it's even things people struggle, you've been doing it for years. Just because you've been doing something for years doesn't necessarily mean it's productive and it's right. Anything that is not beneficial for you is going to hold you down. To be on a true path of antinomianism, you must let go of all those paradigms. For an example, it was like I was saying in the previous video on Papa Legba and the adversarial current. One way of letting go of those paradigms is you can still work, for an example, with deities like Papa Legba in a non-traditional way, in an antinomian way, in your own way. That is a way of how you reprogram yourself and shed the old paradigms. Because if you still do things in those traditional senses and religious senses, you're still confined to these systems of indoctrination. So you must liberate yourself from all of these things. So it means against the law. All right? In psychology, this attitude was also one of the crucial components of Jung's concept of individuation. As he observed in one of his works, the more of a man's life is shaped by the collective norm, the greater is his individual immortality. At present times, the term antinomianism refers to many views and attitudes that are anti-law. On the mundane level, that includes the rejection of moral, social, and religious dogmas that impose certain patterns of thinking or a particular lifestyle, like I was just saying. When you are told what to do, when you're told what you can and cannot do, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, you can't drink this, you can't eat that, you can't do this, you're not allowed to say that, this is not allowed, this is allowed, etc., that's all mind control. That's all mental enslavement, and that's all systems of indoctrination, okay? In the philosophy of the left-hand path, it is a spiritual concept associated with non-conformity and transgression, like I was just saying. It denotes the way toward within, the pursuit of self-salvation distinct from straight and seemingly easily paths offered to the masses by monotheistic religions. So it's a path, again, of self-mastery. It is a philosophy or a concept that is connected to non-conformity and transgression. So you can't still attach yourself to those systems of indoctrination and say you're on a path of antinomianism. It just doesn't work. And as I've said many times before, this is an inward journey out. It's not an outward journey. As I said here, being on the antinomian path it starts from looking within oneself. Whereas mostly all of those other dogmas and spiritual systems have you focused on looking outside of yourself for the answers to the mysteries and questions of life, to the search for deity. It has you looking up somewhere in the clouds in Spookyville. It has you believing that there's some old man in the sky with a long white beard controlling every aspect and every moment of your life and keeping score, that you're following all the rules, and then tallying that score at the end to determine if you're going to go to this place called heaven or hell. That's slave mentality, that's slave thinking. And if I can instill this in you through fear and captivate you through the emotion of fear, once you control somebody through the emotion of fear, it's very easy to get them to do what you want. And that's basically what systems of conformity do. It feeds off of your emotions, various different aspects. But one of the key emotions it really feeds off of, thrives off of, and uses it to manipulate and control people is fear. Okay? So this is important to understand about the antinomian path. It denotes the way toward the within, the pursuit of self-salvation is where we left off. The initiate of the left-hand path views mythological gods and spirits as archetype beings connected with particular components of the universe and reflected in the corresponding aspects of the self. Right? And this is why I say you always manifest deity from within. And they connect with those different aspects of the universe or multiverses, even when they take on an external manifestation through your ritual work, whether it's meditation, a visualization, or some form of a ritual. Right? You are creating and building that deity within your subconscious mind and how you connect with it, right? Again, following that principle of antinomianism, it starts within. It's going within and working your way out. Whereas all of the monotheistic faiths, it's the reverse. They teach you to look way out there in the Spookyville heavens and skies and clouds and then work your way in. So they are, whether you're not aware of it, intentionally unaligning your vibrational and spiritual frequency. They are basically putting you in a low vibrational frequency state and disconnecting you from the spiritual world. Because to connect truly with the spirit world, one must start within. So they're reversing that process. Immediately, they're taking you as far away from yourself as they can to disconnect you as much as they can for the sole purpose of controlling your mind. Okay? This is important to understand because this pretty much describes our path and what we do. Okay? And our approach. All right, let's continue. So it connects with particular components of the universe and reflected in the corresponding aspects of the self. The initiate uses the antinomian attitude as a vehicle of liberation from dogmas and blind faith and breaks out of the paradigm that imposes recognitions of these forces as superior. Meaning we don't accept that there's some external force outside of ourselves that's superior to us and we're inferior and we bow down and we worship. Hell to the no. This is why I keep telling you guys be careful, because there's a lot of people on different platforms out and about now claiming to be occult left-hand path, but they're still teaching you to worship shit. That's why I say be careful. This is why I'm always on it hard, because there's a lot of motherfuckers out there doing that. They claim to be on the occult and the left-hand path, but they're still bringing you to worship something outside of yourself. You cannot be on a path to self-mastery. You cannot be on the path of the occult or the left-hand path if you are still worshiping things outside of yourself. Okay? It's that fucking simple. So when you got a lot of these fluffinators coming and they're taking, raw occult information and they're fluffing it up with their monotheistic bullshit and misleading you and guiding you and taking you again outside of yourself to the spooky ass fucking clouds, this is how you can determine if somebody is really on the path of the occult. Because if you're on the antinomian path, people, you are not looking in any direction away from yourself or outside of yourself. And this is the problem. This is why I'm on it hard like that. I gotta call it for what it is. You can't find any videos where I'm instructing you or guiding you to some external force outside of yourself for salvation. I'm always focusing inward on the individual. I'm always trying to show the individual you are the God you've been looking for since day fucking one. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise, okay? Because a person that can't grasp that, you might as well stay in the church, the masjid, the temple, the Buddhist temple, whatever. Okay? This is not a path for you if you can't embrace that concept, okay? All right. Does this mean that the gods and spirits do not exist as real, objective beings? They are forces that had existed before the universe was born in the womb of chaos and are far older than mankind. So we need to be careful with being too antinomian in this matter, or with treating gods and spirits as mere aspects of our inner mind. And that's why I say there is an external experience to connecting with the gods and the goddesses. And this explains it perfectly. It starts within the mind, right? You connect with it within your psyche. But people get that confused when they look at the first Hermetic principle of Tahuti. All is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. What does that mean? So it just means that these are just concepts and ideas in my mind, not just limited to that. No. There is an external manifestation of these deities and spirits that you connect with, but that process begins within your subconscious mind. So deities are real. They're as real as you manifest them and make them. Because I always get this question, if that's the first Hermetic principle, why is it when I did a ritual I saw Kali or Lilith or this or that? That's the reason why. So know how to decipher between something that's objective and subjective and something that is very personal experience for you. So that's what that's cautioning of, and that's a very good point. It is, however, essential to step out of the narrow frames established by the mass of religions, which hardly ever reserve any place for the spiritual progress of an individual. The reason why, because they're always focusing on things outside of yourself, okay? They're always telling you to look elsewhere, that's why, okay? Passive acceptance of anything that is imposed on us and relying on blind faith alone often leads to stagnation or worse results in regression. This applies both to monotheistic religions, in which many of us have been raised in dogmatic spiritual doctrines. You got to let them go, people. Magical philosophies which promise transcendence but have no place for independent thinking. If you look around you, you will find many attitudes like this. Okay, there's a lot of people who claim they're on the path to self-mastery and liberation, and they don't follow, any of these religious systems of indoctrination, but their character, their behavior, and what they're saying and teaching says something entirely different. You got people still, like I say, I get a lot of people that come on this path. One of the big things on this path is people who come over from the Santeria Ifa community. I find sometimes they're more indoctrinated and mentally enslaved than Christians, Muslims, or Jews. Christians come over, yeah, they might deal with the residual after effects of trying to release all that shit they've been programmed with, but it seems like the Ifa Santeria / people are sometimes they're worse indoctrinated. They can't get past that Ashe stuff, Alafia, Hotep, and all this other shit. That is really just another form of religion that you are just filtering and masking and hiding behind. So be careful of people who are taking that and infusing it with the occult and left-hand path and claiming they are a god or a goddess on this path to self-mastery. Because they still look at deity as something outside of themselves, whether they're conscious of it or not. Again, anybody that's focusing you on worshiping and creating an inferior mind complex to some god outside of yourself, they're not on the path of the occult, the left-hand path, or a path of antinomianism. I'm sorry, okay? It's that simple. That's how you gauge it, okay? All right, let's skip down. All right, this is a good point here. There are many magical systems and philosophies that pretend to be a part of the left-hand path, but are not. Instead, they only prey on naivety of those who get attracted to the sinister glamour. The attitude of obedience, the blind faith, belongs to the right-hand path. Okay? So be careful of people who glamour these things up, who fluff these things up, and will try to pretend they're on the left-hand path or the path of the occult, but then they're coming at you with a bunch of this new age Santeria / traditional spirituality and instructing you to do these traditional things that go against everything of what left-hand path philosophy and self-mastery is all about, and the antinomian path. Okay? This has to be addressed. Because I can't tell you how many people come from other systems and say, yeah, I heard about this, such and such left-hand. I'm like, that's not left-hand path. Where'd you get that from? Okay? And I by no means in saying I'm the sole authority on what left-hand path is or not, but I can definitely identify what it isn't, okay? So I'm not telling you to accept word verbatim how I accept it, but we could just look at the basics, and anybody who's on this path, it doesn't need me or anybody else, will clearly tell you it's easy to identify what it is not, okay? And I'm gonna be clear on what it is not. How you embrace that and grow, that's personal. But we all can easily agree through simple reasoning of what it's not, okay? So there's a lot of shit out there, okay? The left-hand path is characterized by introversion and puts emphasis on the individual experience, the initiatory journey into the depths of the initiate's personal underworld, your subconscious mind, which is the way of isolation that requires a lot of self-intuition, independent thinking. The magical motto here is know thyself, and this knowledge is always individual. There's that old Hermetic saying, know thyself and thou shalt know the gods. It didn't say know the gods outside of you, then you shall know yourself. It says know thyself. So how can people who claim to be connected with spirits deities, archetypes, gods, goddess, whatever you want to refer to it as. But they don't even know themselves. They don't even know it starts within the individual, not outside the individual. So if you don't know yourself, you definitely don't know these gods and goddesses of this path. It's that fucking simple. Okay? So anybody that's directing your worship outside of yourself doesn't know themselves. Okay? Independent and critical thinking is a key skill on this path. I've said this many times before. You must be a critical thinker and an independent thinker. We use critical thinking skills in our research, in our study, and how we perceive things, and how we are going to take those things and apply those things based on how we perceive them. In order to utilize that formula, you must be a critical thinker and an independent thinker. Okay? Even in the present world, many antinomian practices are still viewed as forbidden and controversial. Well, anything that's against the norm, anything that's non-conformist and doesn't go in mainstream society, mainstream education, and mainstream spirituality is always going to be slandered, saying it's taboo, and always just, thrown under the mud with negativity. So you're always going to be up against that obstacle when dealing with this. But as I said, you must have thick skin on this path. You can't worry about what other people think. You shouldn't even give two shits what other people think when it comes to your personal growth, because it's personal. The choices and the decisions you make are going to be the cause and effect if you get to the potential you're capable of getting at. So if you let other people do that for you, now you're putting your soul and your livelihood in the hands of others, when you always had the sovereignty and rulership to be the navigator of your soul and your spirit. You didn't need nobody else to do that shit for you. You didn't need any of the conscious pimps. You didn't need to belong to any of these organizations and follow these charismatic leaders and speakers who said they speak to aliens and extraterrestrials, and follow them and they can guide you to your soul salvation. I told you guys a few years back, the day of the conscious pimps are over. Okay, there's no more of that. We're living in a highly technological time where all the information we need access to is at the tip of our fingers. That shit worked back then because a lot of those people were using old occult books and things of that nature that we didn't have access to. But now with the internet and all these research engines, there ain't shit anybody saying that you can't find out on your own. So the day the conscious pimps are over. Okay? The days is over, people. All right? This usually applies to rituals that are aimed at liberating the spirit from the bonds of cultural, social, and religious indoctrination, sex magic, blood sacrifice, necromantic practices conducted at graveyards and burial places, etc. They still raise a great deal of controversy because people fear what they don't know. These are ancient practices that predate any of these monotheistic religions. You've been programmed to think this is taboo, this is wrong, this is abnormal. So yes, it sounds bizarre to the indoctrinated person, but these are practices that go back eons. But in modern day times, we're told it's forbidden because now they've made us embrace these lesser ways of thinking, okay? But in fact, magic is indeed an act of perversion and a process of transgressing and transcending personal barriers and limitations, okay? So that's what you're doing when you're on the path of antinomianism. I have a few more things I want to run through before I wrap this video up. It might go a few minutes, a little longer, okay? Now, it talks about in here, and as I said in previous videos, blood sacrifice. It's funny how religious folks are totally, horrified and always look at blood sacrifices as something evil and terrible. But they forget that their God of the Bible is a bloodthirsty, vengeful, warmongering God that demands blood. And the smell of the carcass of animals, as the Bible says, and the blood from the burning carcass of the animals is pleasing to this God. Why all this animal sacrifice coming back from war after looting and bringing booty and celebrating victory in war, when this same God says, thou shalt not kill, but it's okay to kill in the name of God when he tells you to, right? But in the Levitical priest rites, right, there was always the slitting of the calf's neck or the bull's neck, and blood poured out on all four corners of the altar. As I told you guys before, the Catholic priest, an old school Catholic priest, reenacts that. If you ever been to a Catholic Mass, when he raises the Eucharist or the chalice, he'll take the chalice or the Eucharist and he'll go north, south, east, west. That's to acknowledge what the Levitical priesthood did in the Holy of Holies. Pay attention. Now, when you look at that ritual of transubstantiation, as the Catholic Church calls it, they say literally that the wine and the bread is turned into the body and blood of Christ. And they want you to believe in your mind you're drinking Christ's blood and eating his body by eating the bread. If that's not magic, manipulating your subjective conscience, I don't know what the fuck is. But that's okay. They're basically telling you cannibalism is okay in a subjective way, but then they're going to tell you the stuff that we do is bizarre. Come on, people, stop. Can we cut the bullshit? Okay? So when blood sacrifice is done in certain rituals, there's spiritual purposes for it. It's not just done for the purpose of drawing blood. There's many different reasons why that's done. It's a practice that goes back to ancient times. But it amazes me how religious people get so like shocked and terrified by it, and how it's so taboo, but they forget how much blood was shed by their biblical God when they read their Bible. They forget that. They don't talk about that. They get amnesia. Or they're so programmed they never looked at it like that. All right? But yeah, not to go too long with that. I think I'm going to do a second part of this because there's some more I want to cover in here. But again, I'm a little pressed for time. I do want to cover more on this. There is more to talk about this. I'm going to get into some of the constraints, the taboos, and things of that nature. I could probably easily do. You know me, man. You know I do lives could be 4 or 5 hours or more. But I don't. My goal is not to make these videos too long-winded. And I'm trying to keep them within that time frame so you guys can use these as tutorials to grow on your path. So I try to keep them in that spectrum. But in a nutshell, the antinomian path is anti everything that's norm. We're not conformists. It's a path of spiritual liberation. It's a path of where you go inward, out, not outward in. It's a path of self-mastery and deification. It's a path where you make the choices and the decisions, and you are liberated from all of those dogmas, philosophies, religions, and constraints that it was mentioned. So if somebody asks you, now you know. If somebody had to know, and you get this, as I said in the beginning of the video, we all over the years have encountered people when we've had dialogue and maybe spirituality comes up. Oh, so what do you believe? What's your religion? Right? They automatically assume you got, because they have a religion, they automatically assume you have a religion. It's fuckery. What's your religion? What do you believe in? Do you believe in God? Right? They ask so arrogant and egotistically, like the way they believe in God is the correct way. And what they're really saying is, do you believe in God the way I believe in God? Right? They're not saying it like that, but that's what they mean when they ask you, do you believe in God? Because immediately their minds registering, and the fear and the insecurity is kicking in, and they're trying to gauge you up. Right? I used to say shit like that sometimes, leave them hanging. I said, no, I'm just a spiritual person. They don't like that either because you leave them hanging. What do you mean when you say spiritual? You believe in a supreme being? Right? They got to keep prying because their fears keep tearing away at them. And I said in the beginning, we're a unique breed. People sense a certain energy in us. There's some people who find it very magnetizing and they're drawn to us and they want to be around us and they want to talk with us because they know there's something different about us. And then there's the other bunch who are fucking shit in their pants, fear us to death. Because what we're making them do is rethink their entire existence and their entire approach to spirituality, the Creator, and God. So they run scared shitless from us because they've been doing it all their life, and they're afraid to maybe everything that they've been doing is possible, it's wrong. Maybe the way they're thinking, they need to reevaluate. But they've become so comfortable with their bullshit that they don't want to change. So that's another thing that creates fear in people's minds. It's change, right? No, if nothing changes, it dies. That's the basic law of metaphysics, quantum physics, and spirituality. Anything that does not change dies. This is why people stuck in dogmas die mentally. Remember, there's many types of death. There's mental deaths, emotional deaths, spiritual deaths, physical deaths. But most of these people who don't change their way of thinking, they become mentally dead. And as I said with Christianity, they have places that are marked with the dead. Their churches have crosses all marked all over it, and that's a symbol of the dead, not just the physically dead, the mentally dead. As I said before, why would you wear an image around your neck of your most sacred prophet / Messiah at his lowest moment? Right? And they give you all bullshit that, well, he suffered on. Yeah, but that's his lowest moment. If Jesus slipped outside and cracked his skull open on the pavement, would you be wearing a piece of pavement around your neck? It's just stupidity. Okay? So you find crosses in the church, you find crosses in the graveyard, and crosses at the seminary where their so-called priests, pastors go to be indoctrinated. And it's all being indoctrinated with the doctrine of the mentally dead. All of those places is where the mentally dead reside. Why? Because they don't change their way of thinking. They're stuck in a system of conformity, and they reenact this over and over for years. They never change their approach on anything. They have a liturgical calendar they follow through the whole course of the calendar year, reenacting these events through the whole calendar year. And when the calendar year is over in their liturgical cycle, they start it all over again. And they just keep doing this shit over and over and just putting a little twist on it here and there. And this keeps people in a system of conformity or confinement. Okay? We're trying to break that barrier. The beautiful thing about the antinomian path is you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. It's an exciting path. You're always exploring. You're challenging yourself. You're trying to be the best you can be. And there's always those doors of opportunity to continue to learn and grow. As I said many times before, we are always a student, not a student who just follows something or somebody. We always have a student mentality in that we're always students because we want to learn. We want to study. We want to grow. So we always have that spirit of being a student, willing to learn, right? And that's what's beautiful about this path. It's always something new. You cannot get complacent and comfortable. You cannot just relax and go, oh, I'm good. No, because there's always opportunities of growth, number one, and there's always challenges that you must be prepared for. And those challenges make you better. Like I said with Papa Legba in the previous video, being connected as an aspect of the adversarial current, he is one of those forces that do that, for an example, along with many others. All right? So we'll see. Maybe I'll do a part 2 on this. We'll see. But I'm going to leave it there for now because, again, I don't want this video to get too long-winded. I don't want to start, you know me, when I start getting that energy and the spirit, I'll just keep flowing. And something that turned into 30 minutes will be 3-4 hours, and I don't want to do that. I want to stay. I'll save the lives for the longer videos, which reminds me, Friday night, we got Sister Kiona will be on live talking about Lilith and renewing your sexual energy while working the satanic path with Lilith. It's going to be a very great show. Don't miss that. That'll be this Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need to reach out to me for a spiritual reading or a consultation, or you want information on the Journey of the Black Adept Conference, email me at khnum19@gmail.com. If you want to sign up for my classes, go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the 3 monthly classes I do on Patreon, privately for Patreon members only, and the group ritual at the end of the month. Remember that all of this new content will be uploaded to the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is in the description box. The link to the podcast will be in the description box of this video, and information on how to contact me and everything that I was talking about in this video. Other than that, I'll try to shoot a couple more videos tomorrow. I'll see you guys on the next video. Infernal blessings, and we'll talk soon.